Based on the reports of the World Trade Organization, the exports and imports contracted up to 2.7, 3.6% in the first quarter of 2019. That was mainly related to the economic distress and trade wars. Trade wars impacted on many areas and multiple commodities. Nevertheless, based on the report of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, there was a certain tendency to the growth up to 2.7%. At a compound annual growth rate of 3.4% at a period of time from 2019 up to 2024. Those numbers could be fluctuative based on certain factors as environmental issues, as geopolitical issues, or problematic shifts in globalization patterns. In our case, it was health-related issues, namely COVID-19. I would like to put certain patterns in the shipping industry of the last decade from 2010 up to 2019. In my eyes, there were major four tendencies. And first is related to acquisition, consolidation, demise. One of the examples can be joining China Shipping with COSCO Shipping, or acquisition by Maersk Hapag-Lloyd, or making one big and strong container ship unit in Japan that was consisting of NYK, K-Ships, and MOL. Another tendency of the last decade in shipping, I would relate to tackling climate change in the industry. Even though shipping industry is not having that big of impact on the carbon emissions as other modes of transport, nevertheless, the IMO was putting all its efforts in order to reduce its impact on the environment from 1960. And 1st of January 2020, namely IMO 2020, was a landmark date that implemented new regulations related to the lower sulfur content in the fuels used by the ships. Talking about COVID-19, as any crisis has its risks, it also has its opportunities. Coming to the opportunities in maritime security field, there were a lot of those, but probably not for all the private maritime security companies. There are high chances of piracy because of COVID-19, as governments become overwhelmed with the spate of different issues that leads to the scarcity of the resources and high unemployment growth and economic activity disruption. Countries affected already by the maritime security issues, they do miss on certain mitigating strategies in order to combat piracy. With healthcare systems getting the priority, there is a high concern that maritime crime might be neglected. That will lead to increase in illicit maritime trading, and it's pretty unlikely that there will be any decrease in piracy incidents whatsoever. At the same time, I would like to point out that not all private maritime security companies had a chance to succeed during COVID-19 times. If they had their teams based ashore and they had pretty high costs in order to maintain those teams, staying at the hotels, not being able to be repatriated back home. In our case, all our teams were already offshore on board of the floating armories, and we were able to support our clients with professional security services without any disruption. Despite COVID-19 crisis, AlSafina Security continued to provide security services for all the vessels passing the high-risk area without any disruption. The strategic location of all the platforms with our security operators on board at OPL Fujairah in Arabian Sea, Red Sea, helped us to cover all the vital shipping routes for our clients' network, from Arab Gulf to Mediterranean, from Red Sea to Horn of Africa, from Far East to Suez and backwards. Thus, any crisis gives a lots of risks, but at the same time, harnessing the opportunities is our vital goal. We were ready for the crisis, putting in place contingency planning, having all our guards safely checked on board of the platforms already offshore. Thus, we were able to provide undisruptive security services for the clients that we have worked for many years.